broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone. I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone. I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
Facts Media Global. It's the midday mix-up. You see the topic. I gotta get to this. I had to just touch on it. We gotta see the controversy and the talk. What's going on in the community? But before we get into that, what's going on with the first shifters, second shifters, and the third shifters? Hope everybody had a wonderful day. I'm feeling good today. Hopefully we have a sunny day. And the sun come out. I'll be able to go outside and, connect with the peoples. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. April the 18th, 2018. Let me go grab my notes real quick. 1 second. Alright, I'm back. Let's get into it. Today in history. April 18th, 1775. The year 1775. During the American Revolution, the British advancement by sea begins. Paul Revere and other writers warned the countryside of the troop movement. 1775. In 1831, April 18th, 1831, today in history, University of Alabama is founded in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Down there in the Tuscaloosa. 1923, the location is Bronx, New York. The date was April the 18th. The year was 1923. What took place? Does anybody know? Has anybody been on their history? Well, in 1923, Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built, opens up today in 1923. Fast forward to 1930, the BBC, British Broadcast Channel, announced that there is no news in their evening report. I don't know too much about the BBC, but I know it's I've seen it. But I have never seen a news broadcast station ever announce in the evening news report that there's no news to report. That was a good day. 1942, World War II, the Doolittle raid on Japan, Tokyo, Yokohama, Kobe, and Nagoya are bombed. In 1945, over 1,000 British bombers attack the small island of Heligoland, Germany. I did my research on this specific story because when it came past Facts Media Global Stats, the only thing I could think about was 1,000 bombers. You know. So I tried to figure out like what was the, like how many bombers was it? It's a whole lot of different things. And I saved it. A 1,000 bombers. That's a lot. And let me tell you exactly what kind it was. If I'm ever able to find it. For some reason, I lost it. But it was a lot. All different kind. 1959. No, correction. 1955. 29 nations meet at the Bandung, Indonesia. 29 nations meet at Bandung, Indonesia for the first Asian African Conference. The first Asian African Conference. If you got time, go look it up. Go look it up and do your research. Today in history. Let's fast forward. 1980, April 18th, 1980, the Republic of Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, comes into being with Canaan Banana as country's first president. The Zimbabwean dollar replaces the Rhodesian dollar. Today in history. Not real long ago, 1980. 1983, suicide bombers in Lebanon destroys the United States Embassy in Beirut, killing 65 people. 1988, today in history, the U.S. launches Operation Praying Mantis against Iranian naval forces in the largest naval battle since World War II. Look that up. Do your research on that. You will be shocked. 2007, a series of bombings, 2 of them being suicide bombings, occur in Baghdad, killing 198 and injuring 251. Fast forward a few years later, 2013, same place, Baghdad, suicide bomber kills 27 and injures 65. Birthdays, celebrating birthdays today. Got Courtney K, America Ferrera, and Albert Einstein sunset on April 18th. Albert Einstein. We lost the great Albert Einstein. You want to know what year it was? Look it up. That's what I'm encouraging people to do. Guess what, people? Guess what today is? In Japan. What is today in Japan? Well, let me tell you what today is. Today in Japan, they are celebrating Inventions Day. Inventions. You know, they so stuck in the mindset of inventing and innovating and making things easier and better and more technical that they just commemorated a whole day. Inventions Day. We need to have Inventions Day. What you think? But instead, we seem to be stuck in a vicious cycle. A vicious cycle. This is the cycle. This is the cycle. Why is that? Over and over and over and over. Same old thing. Same old thing. I mean, we can see it. We can see what pulls the big numbers. The positivity don't. Positivity ain't pulling them numbers. It's only the beef and the bang. Trying to unify the people, though. trying to liberate our people. That ain't pulling nothing. You know? I don't know. I don't get the numbers that we need. So I encourage the people. Let me see what's going on here. Don't fall for the setback. That's every time. Every time that occurs. Yeah. It, you know, almost got caught. I almost got caught. I ain't gonna talk about it. You know, wasn't that heavy, but at the end of the day, you got to think about, alright, this is what I want people to understand. People out here, you know, trying to raise their family, they saving their money up, they trying to look for an outlet or information to try to get out of the situation that they're in. And they wind up losing those funds. That put people in a bad space. A vengeful space. That's a different aura. You know, that's a whole different energy right there. I mean, I understand. Don't we all believe in karma? We all believe in karma. So whatever goes around comes back around, and you're gonna have to deal with all of the energy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, that's how it's always been with me. That's how it's always been with me. Anytime I've done something that I knew that, you know, we all did some foul stuff coming up. But, you know, people I came up around, we had rules. We had, you know what I'm saying, it was different things you had to follow. You couldn't do certain things. You know. Like now, every time you turn around, what you see? What you see? Our own people getting over on our own people. I mean, what's going on over here is small. This is small. We got the media taking advantage of it, mainstream media, you know. Big name media outlets, they're taking advantage of it. We got leaders of countries, first ladies of countries, you know, turning the countries from being profitable into, now they don't have any. We just went over it in today in history. How Zimbabwe was able to gain their independence. You know, they was able to get their own currency. But if you do your research now, Google what is the Zimbabwe official currency in 2018? And if you come up with Zimbabwean currency, $50 money card. A $50 money card right now. If Zimbabwe's currency is the Zimbabwean dollar in 2018, somebody can show me proof. It was just originated in 1980. So you got 80, 90, 2000, 2010. But we see that in the past 11 years with Robert Mugabe and Grace Mugabe, that is what did it. You know, jumping the gun and got fooled. Let the enemy trick them, and then as soon as you figure out that you've been tricked, you get right into your feelings and get all emotional. We get all emotional. Jump the gun. The enemy sent the house niggas in there. You know, he took the land in the house. Then the enemy said, "All right, we got some house niggas. Let's just send them in there to buy it." As soon as he found that out, then he just went. He got punch drunk. But I wonder if Grace Mugabe was behind that. I wonder if Grace Mugabe had a hand in that, because we see the moves that she was making. She went over to Hong Kong and opened up a diamond processing business. You know, you gotta be able to cut them raw diamonds. Took over the diamond mines. Now what? The rebels got the diamond mines now. They ain't worrying about sending no diamonds over here to liberate our people. Right now in Zimbabwe, in the diamond mines, they got, you know, just factions of individuals in there just going for what they know. No control. You know, they say that they was here, Mugabe was here, and he ain't in power no more, so who is to tell us that we gotta go? It's land. It's people that look just like me and you, doing us dirty every day. But we so much in our feelings, we don't want to point the finger. You know, because it's easier to blame, you know, the white man. That's the easiest thing you can do. But when you really look at the situation, then you say to yourself, hold up, I'm pointing the finger at the wrong person. You know? Doing a daily wrap up, what did we talk about? The Citizens Council. The Citizens Council. Anybody? I don't know if anybody knew about the Citizens Council. You know, I don't know. And then talked about what was the GOFCC, who took over for the Citizens Council. Like, we got these factions and these organizations and these groups. They not hiding. They're not hiding. They got the Confederate flag right next to the American flag. They letting you know they're in plain sight. Why not go after them? Why not go after them? Why the SPLC is not targeting those groups? Are they a part? Are they a member? I heard what they said yesterday. What did they say? We got members. They said it yesterday. As politicians, they go into the conventions, they making speeches. They support. They support it. All day long. All day long. All right, let me get about it. Let me get into this. Pick right back up. I'm going back. I want y'all to hear the speech. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna rewind it back. Let's go.
Work together.
I remember cooking some pinto beans, and that's all we had. And everybody just got around the pot, you know, and that was an experience, you know, just to see white people, you know, coming around the pot and getting a bowl and putting some stuff in. And they're sitting around talking and sitting on the floor, sitting anywhere, because, you know, it wasn't any great dining room tables and stuff that we had been used to working in the white people houses, and go in there and find them all sitting, you know, and everybody sitting, and they ring a bell or something and tap, and you come in and bring the stuff and put it around. But this, you was sitting in the floor and they was talking, and you know, you were sitting there laughing, and I guess they become very real and very human. We each to one another.
On August 4th, on a farm outside the town of Philadelphia, the bodies of Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner were discovered buried together in an earthen dam. The autopsy reports indicated that the men had been killed by .38 caliber bullets. A later report revealed that James Cheney, the one black victim, had also suffered severe bone and skull fractures.
Throughout our history, countless Americans have died in the continuing struggle for equality. We shall continue to work for this goal, and we fervently hope that Americans so engaged will be aided and protected in this noble mission. For ourselves, we wish to express our pride in our son's commitment and that of his companions now dead, and that of his companions now alive, now in Mississippi, acting each hour to express those truths that are self-evident.
August 7th, 1964, the funeral of James Cheney in Meridian, Mississippi.
I feel that he's gotten his freedom, and we're still fighting for it. But what I want to talk about right now is the living dead that we have right among our midst, not only in the state of Mississippi, but throughout the nation. Those are the people who don't care. those who do care but don't have the guts enough to stand up for it, and those people who are busy up in Washington and other places using my freedom and my life to play politics with. That includes the president on down to the governor of the state of Mississippi, you see. In my opinion, as I stand here, I not only blame the people who pulled the trigger, or did the beating, or dug the hole with the shovel. I bury the people, not bury, sorry. But I blame the people in Washington, D.C., and on down in the state of Mississippi for what happened just as much as I blame those who pulled the trigger. You see, I know what's going to happen. I feel it deep in my heart when they find the people who killed those guys in Neshoba County. You got to come back to the state of Mississippi and have a jury, all their cousins, their aunts, their uncles. And I know what they're going to say, not guilty, because no one saw them pull the trigger. I'm tired of that. See, and another thing that makes me even tired of those, that is the fact that we as people here in the state, in the country, are allowing this to continue to happen. Even us as black folk. So I look at the young kids here, that's something else that I grieve about. The little Ben Cheney here, and the other ones like him around in this audience. When you want someone to babysit for me, gets my black man to hold that baby. And as long as he can do that, he can sit down beside me, he can watch me go out there and register to vote, and he can watch me take some type of public office in his state, and he can sit down as I rule over him just as he's ruled over me for years, you see. This is our country too. We didn't ask to come here when they brought us over here.
I have been approached by the people of my national office of CORE and others to make sure that the speech that's given is calm. They don't want a lot of, things stirred up and everything else like that. And I'd agreed to do that. And I said, okay, fine, it's good. But then when I got up there and I looked out there and I saw little Ben Cheney, things just sort of snapped. And I was in a fantasy world to be sitting up here talking about things going to get better and we should do it in an easy manner.
You see how they send these type of people like this guy? This is what I was sent. For what? You know? This is how they do.
The number non-violence and stuff like that is because this country, you cannot make a man change by speaking a foreign language. You just understand what you're talking about. This country operated then and still operates on violence. I mean, it's just an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's what we respect.
The parents of Cheney and Schwerner wanted their sons buried side by side in Meridian. But Mississippi law enforced segregation even in death. James Cheney, age 21, was buried alone in a segregated cemetery.
Sorrow and sadness that we are all one family.
The state never brought anyone to trial for the murder of the 3 young men. But in federal court, Deputy Cecil Price and 6 others were found guilty of civil rights violations in connection with the killings and received sentences ranging from 3 to 10 years. As Freedom Summer moved towards August, the state's Democratic Party met to select delegates to the National Convention. As usual, blacks were not allowed to participate, but this would be no ordinary election year. 2 weeks later, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party chose its own delegates to challenge the right of the all-white regulars to represent the state. The MFDP emphasized that it was open to all citizens.
The Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party is only beginning, and it is beginning on the basis that it believes that a political party should be open to all the people who wish to subscribe to its principles. That means it's open to even the son of the planter on whose plantation you work, if that son has reached the point that he's willing to subscribe to your principles.
The MFDP delegation of 64 blacks and 4 whites prepared to leave for Atlantic City. goal was to be seated at the Democratic National Convention as the true representatives of their home state. For many, it was their first trip out of Mississippi. For all, this was the culmination of Freedom Summer, the final opportunity to open up Mississippi to the nation.
You know, I think one of the things that made the delegation of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party so hopeful, you know, so expectant, was the fact that people had made a discovery, you know, a discovery that there is a way out of, you know, much of that is wrong with our lives, and that there is a way to change it, and that is through the execution of this vote, you know. And so we can't get past these people at the state level because they've locked us out, but we just know that once we get to the national level, you know, with all the proof that we have been locked out, and the fact that we've had the courage to go ahead and create our own party, then, you know, we feel like that we are going to get that representation that we've been denied for so long.
Atlantic City, New Jersey, site of the 1964 Democratic Convention. Lyndon Johnson expected no opposition in getting his party's nomination, but was concerned the MFDP would disrupt party unity. With the arrival of the Freedom Democrats on August 20th, there were now 2 delegations in town from Mississippi. The Democratic Party would have to decide which would represent the state on the convention floor. That decision would be made by the Credentials Committee. On Saturday, August 22nd, America watched this nationally televised hearing.
It is the very terror that these people are living through that is the reason that Negroes aren't voting, but they're kept out of the Democratic Party by the terror of the regular party. And what I want the Credentials Committee to hear is the terror which the regular party uses on the people of Mississippi, which is what Reverend King was explaining, which is what Aaron Henry was explaining, and which is what the next witness will explain, Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer.
Terrorism. Terrorism, people. It's the early 60s. They calling it how this is a white man that y'all like to call an enemy. You like to put them all in one basket. But this is who's talking right now. You know, he's calling a spade what it is. Terrorism. Let's not put no racism, white supremacists on it. Let's call it what it is. And take this to the UN. Let's take this to the High Court.
Mr. Chairman, and to the Credentials Committee, my name is Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, and I live at 626 East Lafayette Street, Louisville, Mississippi. Sunflower County, the home of Senator James O. Easton and Senator Stinson. If the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off of the hook because our lives be threatened daily, because we want to live as decent human beings in America?
We will return to this scene in Atlantic City, but now we switch to the White House and NBC's Robert Kurowski.
Lyndon Johnson cut off coverage of MFDP testimony by making a last-minute request for network airtime.
We had an hour before the Credentials Committee. Fannie Lou Hamer made her famous pitch. Martin Luther King. We had the greatest array of people you have ever can imagine, and the Credentials Committee was very impressed. But Johnson was not.
Despite the TV cut off by the president, Mrs. Hamer's message had gotten through. Viewers back home sent telegrams to delegates, urging support of the MFDP. But President Johnson was afraid Southerners would desert the party if the MFDP were seated. He began pressuring liberals close to the Freedom Democrats. Senator Hubert Humphrey, a longtime champion of civil rights, was feeling that pressure. Many believed he would not be selected for the vice presidency unless he helped stop the MFDP.
My only interest in this is an attempt to try to bring about a reconciliation of views in the hopes to keep our convention united with one objective: to defeat Mr. Goldwater in November and to carry forward the Democratic program.
Humphrey assigned Walter Mondale, his young protege from Minnesota, to work out a solution.
See, everybody was trying to think of something that was simple and would solve it and would satisfy everybody. The problem was there was no such solution. And so we'd go around and around and around, and everybody try this and try that, and writers would see if they could write around the problems, and philosophers see if they could dream of something to dream over the problem. It wouldn't go away. It had to be resolved. It had to be compromised, I think, in the way that we did it, and it was inevitable that some people would be unhappy.
The committee did come up with a compromise. It offered the MFDP 2 seats at large, meaning they would not represent the state of Mississippi. It allowed the all-white regulars to be seated only if they would swear loyalty to the Democratic ticket. Finally, the committee promised to bar from future conventions any delegation guilty of discrimination. In response, all but 4 of the all-white regulars walked out of the convention.
It may not satisfy everybody, the extremes on the right or the extremes on the left. But we think it is a just compromise. We think it is based soundly on the law. We think it clearly recognizes, without compromises, the basic devotion of this party to human rights. And we think it represents and sets the stage for the overwhelming victory of the man who, more than anybody else in the world, represents the cause of justice and law today, President Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson announced that Hubert Humphrey would be his running mate before boarding the plane for the convention. In Atlantic City, the Freedom Democrats had not yet decided whether to accept or reject the compromise.
We've got an offer to our people. We've got a great deal out of this. I think to call this a loss is a bad mistake.
You were talking before of no compromise. Now, you got your 2 delegates in. The regular party's gotten 3. You think you've made a substantial gain?
I think we've made a terrific gain. You always talk no compromise in a convention until you get the best you can, then you quit.
Are the leaders of the Freedom Democrats satisfied?
I don't think so, and I don't blame them. Nobody ever gets all they want. The leaders of the regulars aren't satisfied either. They're going back to Jackson.
Political allies and national civil rights leaders urged the MFDP to accept the compromise, but the Freedom Democrats voted overwhelmingly to turn it down. In the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, "We didn't come all this way for no 2 seats when all of us is tired."
I think people felt that the Democratic Party would actually embrace them. I think there was a lack of real understanding of the depth to which the local Southern politicians were entwined in the Democratic Party, and that there would be a real reluctance on the part of the National Democratic Party leadership to take in black people at the expense of these Southern politicians.
The whole issue around the compromise for us and for me was that it was some kind of political ploy that they understood But for us, for Mississippi, it was what was right and what was wrong. It was, we had been done wrong. Our rights had been taken away. And you just couldn't issue some 2 seats at large to correct that. And it was a moral situation that had to be right. So it wasn't just a political something to get away with, is that we sit in the rooms and negotiate. You know, they knew about those kind of things, but we didn't. How to sit in the rooms and negotiate way and say, you know, we'll take the best of this, a piece of that. We went after what was right, and it was wrong the way we had been treated for hundreds and hundreds of years. Denied the right to register to vote, denied the right to participate in the political process, and that's what was going on.
The MFDP delegates made one last appeal for national attention. They tried to sit in the seats abandoned by the Mississippi regulars.
Ray, will you identify yourself for us, please?
My name is Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm the vice chairman of the Freedom Democrat Party.
Where did you get the credentials to get into the building tonight, Mrs. Hamer?
Some old friends of ours gave us an invitation to come in. We sit with them a while, and we wanted to sit in our own state.
Do you have any kind of credentials that will get you into these seats?
No, we don't. Only as American citizens.
Mr. Sergeant at Arms, have you had any contingency plans for this? None at all. I just stand here peacefully, trying to keep this aisle clear.
Mississippi, when they are before the eyes of the world, they are peaceful and loving. And when they get back to Mississippi, it's nigger, you can't come in here. Nigger, you can't come in there. Nigger, you get out. Here we are in the eyes of the world, seeing the same thing that happens way down in the deep south, Mississippi.
The MFDP was never seated at the 1964 convention, but their protest opened up the Democratic Party and changed national politics. For some, Atlantic City ended in disillusionment. They had lost faith in America's leaders, but they had come to know their own power.
The country refuses to demand that Mississippi give Negroes their rights, their privileges. We didn't ask to be elected to anything. We didn't ask for any patronage. All we asked for is to let us sit.
Guess we got that faith back. Huh? We done got that faith back. When did we get the faith back? With the independence card? The food stamps? When? Because ain't nothing changing. We running around talking about how we don't know what we supposed to do and how to get us out of this situation and how it's not going to happen. That's all we keep talking about, on how it's not going to happen. We sound just like the enemy. We preaching the enemy's sermon. We preaching the enemy's sermon to our own people. Huh? Am I right or am I wrong? Did somebody tell me? This is what we choose to do. This is what we choose to do right now in 2018. Like we don't know what's going on.
Selma, Alabama, 1965.
I don't need to leave. We have come to register to vote.
If you can't vote, you ain't free. And if you ain't free, well, then you're a slave.
We're willing to be beaten for democracy.
Years of struggle came down to this climactic battle for voting rights. Before it ended, black and white Americans gave their lives. But would that be enough?
You beat people bloody in order that they will not have the privilege to vote.
I know the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
In the areas of the country where the government has proven itself unable and, or unwilling to defend the Negroes when they are being brutally and unjustly attacked, then the Negroes themselves should take whatever steps necessary to defend themselves.
To many Americans, black and white, this was their worst nightmare. Race riots in northern cities during the summer of 1964. The civil rights movement was 10 years old. Nonviolence had been the strategy. But could nonviolence work in a society which grew angrier each day?
On behalf of the Nobel Committee,
to the world, Martin Luther King Jr. had come to symbolize the success of nonviolent strategy. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in December 1964.
And the gold medal.
But in America, young militants were beginning to challenge King's leadership. Dallas County, Selma, Alabama. For more than a year, organizers from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, had worked with local residents in waging a voter registration campaign. They met solid resistance. By the end of 1964, SNCC was exhausted with little money to continue. Selma's black leaders turned to Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference for help.
Today marks the beginning of a determined, organized, mobilized campaign.
King's presence reopened an old rivalry between the ministers of SCLC and the young organizers of SNCC.
We felt that there should be a projection and an organization of indigenous leadership, leadership from the community. Whereas the Southern Christian Leadership Conference took the position that Martin was a charismatic leader who was mainly responsible for raising money, and they raised most of the money off of his leadership. But this differences in leadership then led to differences in style of work. We wanted a movement that would survive the loss of our lives. Therefore, the necessity to build a broad-based movement and not just a charismatic leader.
SNCC and SCLC put aside their differences and launched a combined effort on January 18, 1965. The Dallas County Courthouse steps became a dramatic stage as prospective voters lined up for the registrar's office inside. The key actor was Sheriff Jim Clark.
You residents of Dallas County, you move back off the sidewalk then. Get on back there. Get on back. Get on back. Move on. Move on. Move on. You get back on the sidewalk. Off the sidewalk. And move back there. You are blocking the traffic if you have to stand the line. Move back.
Movement leaders counted on Clark to draw media attention, the kind of attention that would interest Washington and win voting rights legislation.
I am a segregationist. I do not believe in biracial committees.
Selma's political leaders understood the movement's tactics and were desperate not to get caught in the middle. Mayor Joseph Smitherman and his public safety director Wilson Baker hoped to restrain the volatile Sheriff Clark as he dealt with the demonstrators.
They picked Selma just like a movie producer would pick a set. You had the right ingredients. I mean, you'd had to seen Clark in his day. He had a helmet liner like General Patton. He had the clothes, the Eisenhower jacket, and a swagger stick. And then Baker was very impressive. And I guess I was the least of all. I was 145 pounds and a crew cut and big ears. So you had a young mayor with no background or experience.
Our city and our county has been subjected to the greatest pressures I think any community in the country has had to withstand. We've had in our area here outside agitation groups of all levels. We've had Martin Luther King. We have had people of the Nazi Party, the States' Rights Party. Both of these groups have come in. They have continually harassed and agitated us for approximately 3 or 4 weeks.
More than half of Dallas County citizens were black, but less than 1% were registered by 1965. Throughout much of the South, custom and law had long prevented blacks from registering. In Selma, the registrar's office was open only 2 days a month. Registrars would arrive late, leave early, and take long lunch hours. Few blacks who lined up would get in, and getting in was no guarantee of being registered. President Johnson knew the problem, and now, having soundly defeated conservative Barry Goldwater in the recent election, he set this goal.
I propose that we eliminate every remaining obstacle to the right and the opportunity to vote.
But Johnson's staff had doubts about pushing for more legislation.
I think those of us who had been involved day in and day out in civil rights litigation, in getting the 1964 Civil Rights Act through Congress, were the people who were dragging our feet and wanted breathing room. The president didn't want that. He said, get it and get it now, because we'll never have a better opportunity to get legislation on any subject, including civil rights, than we have right now in 1965. We have the majority to do it, we can do it.
Okay. Hey. That's what he said. So now today, in 2018, I got a message. It's no better time than right now. Everything that we want, everything that we need, everything that we owe to the youth, everything can happen right now. It's no better time. This is the only, it's basically the same. If we don't do something right now, then the opportunity to do something down the line may never present itself again. These are the kind of things that should be communicated constantly online to our listeners, because we are creatures of repetition. Throw it in your face long enough. How many songs you probably heard the first time you heard it? You're like, oh man, how could they even make this song? But then, as they keep playing it on the radio, keep playing it, then you're like, oh man, this song, because you heard it 50 times. Of course, you hear something 50 times. If you gotta eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and you can't eat anything else, some days that peanut butter jelly gonna taste like a steak. You might eat a piece of that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You might think about it might start tasting like shrimp. Hey, you keep it in your face long enough, you're gonna learn to like it. It's the same way. Harriet Tubman's son. Yeah, I'm a long lost lineage of Harriet Tubman. And I done devised the new Underground Railroad. And I'm coming to get y'all. I might not make it to the promised land, but I seen the promised land. I might not make it there with you. Facts Media Global, it's been the Midday Mix-Up. Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. exclusively on YouTube. I'll be back live at 5. Kick it with everybody. Appreciate y'all coming out. I'll at y'all later. Be safe. 1.